Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of LFC Transfer Room. It's the Saturday Night Club, and we are a little bit later than scheduled, mainly because I think we were all watching, hoping that City were going to drop points. But enter Kevin De Bruyne, and Kevin De Bruyne does what he does. A goal and an assist, and it looks like City are on the charge. Neil, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Bit disappointed because I thought, 2 minutes away from the match ending. But it is what it is. I think we expected them to win before the game. And I think the strength of the two benches was probably the difference. So disappointed, but we're in a great position. So all good.
Yeah, we can bring on the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. It nearly empties our bench when we could bring on the likes of Jota or Nunes, whoever's been rested at the time, or Cody Gakpo. Oscar Bobb's finish was absolutely sublime as well. So you can't take too much away from them. I did think Newcastle would do us a favour, but alas, they are the mentality midgets, as someone said earlier. Colin, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, sad to... we can see this race coming, I think, a mile away, so... sad to see it probably, going to happen, and City do what they do. They win, and they should, because they've paid for it. So, but yeah, always disappointing to see them go from losing position to a winning position. But otherwise, doing great.
Good. I mean, like we say, these things happen. You sort of know that City are going to go on the charge. I've not really been impressed with Newcastle. I touted them for a top four finish after last season's, dramatic heights, but injuries have massively hampered them, and they've missed Joe Linton as well. So let's talk all things Liverpool. We actually have quite a nice evening lined up, because we don't actually have a game this week, which will serve the lads really well. I'm actually quite excited about having a bit of a break. I think the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai will do well for a rest. And, I'm looking forward to seeing the team back again. Thiago Bajcetic, hopefully they're soon to be returning, and Thiago can have the impact that Kevin De Bruyne had. Neil, it's been a quiet transfer window so far. That's nothing really to be shocked at. We know that Liverpool only really do business if if there's a deal to be had, or if someone like Spurs going for Luis Diaz, for example, or Cody Gakpo becomes available. Do you think Liverpool are waiting for the opportune moment, or do you think that perhaps actually they're not interested in many people, and they're happy to see this transfer window pass by silently?
Yeah, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I don't think we'll do any business in terms of incomings. I think he's relatively happy with his squad. The issue is that there are so many players missing at the moment, and we do need to see some of those players come back quickly for it not to become a problem. So I think we've seen the emergence of Jarell Quansah. I think we saw a fairly impressive performance from Connor Bradley. And I think he'll stick with what he's got. I think 2 months ago, people might have said we're desperate for a defensive midfield player, and then Endo's performances improved massively. So I'd be surprised if we do any business. I think a lot of focus has gone into sorting out the players that were out on loan, and making sure that if they weren't playing, bringing them back. Owen Beck's probably an interesting one as to what happens with him. Because he's actually been doing very, very well at Dundee, and their supporters were not happy to see him come back. But I think with Robbo and Tsimikas edging closer to a return, I think we might also see him pushed back out on loan. So yeah, so I don't see much happening in terms of incomings. If that opportunity presents itself, I don't know what it'll be. Maybe we'll get involved, but I don't think so.
No, I think, like I said, it does seem like Liverpool swoop when they need to, or when there's an opportunity for them to. I say need to. We did see Ozan Kabak and Ben Davies come in when we were short of a centre-back. Fortunately, Colin, we do have Jarell Quansah, who has been an absolute revelation this season. And as Neil said, I thought Connor Bradley was man of the match the other night. I thought it was absolutely fantastic in everything that he did, which perhaps does actually solve that defensive midfield position that Trent could perhaps push into that 6 if Conor Bradley can play at that right back position. I think
Mhm.
the need for a left back now with Gomez there and looking really, really solid, actually, perhaps doesn't need either a centre back or a left back or a defensive midfielder if Trent can slot in there as well. So what are your thoughts on the upcoming window? Do you think that Liverpool do business if something becomes available? And even if it did, what would you expect from Liverpool?
Yeah, I thought it's been interesting is obviously it's been quiet business wise, but I think it's been really, really quiet, like rumor wise as well. Like, there's like been I feel like very, very little very, very little talk about, even potential for anything to happen, which I think is pretty telling. I don't suspect anything to happen, barring some very serious injury crisis or someone that we are fairly certain we're going to be buying anyways in the summer, to be kind of preyed upon by another team. That would be the only way I think we get forced into doing some business. The vast majority is going to be out on loans, and I would expect we've had a few already, but I would expect even the majority of that business to happen, last week of the season, of the transfer window. I think it's going to be really quiet, and I think it's kind of proven that already, and I don't suspect that'll change.
Massive big thank you to Jen, who sent a 4.99 super sticker. As always, Jen, you keep this channel afloat, so thank you so much. And whilst we're on to the topic, please, everybody, do give us a like and a subscribe. It does go a long, long way to the channel. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for your donations, and thank you for clicking the like and subscribe. I think Jay has raised a really good question, actually, whilst we're talking about the right back position. What do Liverpool do with Calvin Ramsey? Because he actually was really touted to be that Trent understudy when he signed from Scotland. Neil, I mean, have you seen much of Calvin Ramsey? Obviously had that horrific injury that kept him out for quite a while. And it looks like Conor Bradley seems to be the understudy for Trent.
It was always an interesting one for me because Conor Bradley was there when we bought Calvin Ramsey from, I think it was from Aberdeen. And Bradley is a fairly established international player for Northern Ireland. He went out on loan to Bolton and was their player of the year, getting goals and assists. So it was always going to be an interesting one for me this year with Calvin Ramsey there and Conor Bradley there. I think Calvin Ramsey is a talented player. He made a couple of appearances last season, looked good. Again, he'd done exceptionally well in Scotland. I think he was their under 21 Scottish Footballer of the Year the season before we bought him. So I think he needs to play because he did have that horrific injury, as you said. He's had more injury problems during his loan spell this season. So I think it's fairly clear for me that Conor Bradley will remain the understudy for Trent, along with maybe Joe Gomez, depending on where he's needed at the time. And I think Ramsey will be sent out on loan again to get some game time under his belt. And I think Colin makes a good point that we might find the likes of Calvin Ramsey, Nat Phillips, and Owen Beck. We don't get decisions till late in the window, so that when we do resume, we get a chance to assess where we are with the injuries that we've got. So for me, it's Bradley will stay, and Ramsey will go out and get more game time.
I think Joe Gomez has been an absolute revelation. We're talking about revelations in Conor Bradley. I think Joe Gomez actually has been, such a talent this season, whether it's been at right back, centre back, or at left back. He's looked back to his best. And so many people had written him off. There were lots of tweets going out, lots of people on social media saying they were happy for the Saudi money to come in and cash in on Joe Gomez. But I think Joe Gomez has been sensational, whether anywhere across that back line. He offers that stability. He's so much more defensive minded than Trent obviously is at right back. And he does offer that, solidity, but he also does that at left back. But I tell you one thing that I've noticed this season, he is absolutely desperate, Colin, to get that first goal. He takes at least one shot a match now, and he does find himself quite high up the pitch playing in those fullback positions, compared to what he used to. And I generally feel that that first goal isn't very far away. Does it come to win us a cup? Do we dare say the Premier League? Either way, I can certainly see him scoring this season because he's getting himself in dangerous positions and he's taking the pot shots too.
Yeah, he is. And when he's been up the field, I think he's looked really good there as well. He's been outstanding, I think, in any position that he's been put in. And and his chances to score a goal look that good because he's putting himself in those great positions. He's he's taking the chances to do that. It's a different kind of confidence that I think we can see with him. And that goal is coming. I saw some people on Twitter suggesting something like, if we get a penalty, do we give it to him that way? And I was no, like don't give it to him. Like don't give him. He's gonna get an open play goal. Like it's coming. It's close.
Listen, if we're 5-0 up and it's the 90th minute, I'm more than happy for Joe Gomez to step up.
Sure.
But apart from that, absolutely not. No. Get Mac on there, get Zobo on there, get Darwin on there.
Yeah. And not even necessarily just that, like, I think he would score it. Like I would have I would have all the confidence in the world that he's going to score it. But I just think that he is going to get that open play goal. And it has looked more and more likely over the past 2 months. And with his increased game time, when he is in those those final third positions, when he's kind of stepped up, I think he's looked great. He's taken the right shots. He's been, inches close, like 3 or 4 times. So it's coming. And that confidence, I think, has been amazing for his game overall. In whatever position he's taking up on the field. I think you could just see that he is full of confidence. He's full of self-belief and it shows. He's been phenomenal.
Yeah, he has. Neil, are you so glad that he stayed at Liverpool when it did look like, again, suffering 2 horrific injuries? It didn't look like he was going to get back to that season, where he was starting alongside Virgil van Dijk and looking like an absolute rock before unfortunately got injured. I mean, how impactful has Joe Gomez been this season across that back line for you?
He's arguably been, the most important player because I don't know what we would have done without him, because I think he did start the odd game at centre back. Then we used him when Conor Bradley was injured as a deputy to Trent. And now we've got both left backs injured. He slipped seamlessly into that role. So I think we're fortunate. We've got a player that's still relatively young that can play in any of those positions across the back line, and those players are few and far between. And I think we're very, very lucky to have him. I think the fan base as a whole was down on him because he had a nightmare against Real Madrid last season. But I always feel as a player that when you're not playing regularly and then you're brought in from out the cold, it takes time, game time to get rhythm and to get back to your best. And I think now we're seeing him play a lot more regularly than he has done for the past couple of seasons. We're seeing the benefits of that, and I think he's probably been, probably by myself, probably a little bit harshly judged because there's obviously still a very good player in there. And as I say, I think we're lucky that we've got someone that can fill in all those positions as and when needed.
I'd certainly think that Gareth Southgate should be looking at him. And if I'm completely honest, I think Gareth Southgate should be having him as the first, second, third defender on that plane because he can play anywhere across the back. So he's so versatile. You can stick him in anywhere. You know, I think he should absolutely be nailed on for the summer for England's Euro squad. And if he isn't, I mean, people aren't Southgate's greatest fan anyway, but if he isn't, then that question mark really needs to be questioned because I think it's for someone who can be so versatile and also so impactful and also be, so progressive with the ball, but also have their defensive capabilities in mind too. Joe Gomez should 100% be donning that England shirt in the summer.
Yeah. And I think, everyone raves about Saka. Gomez has played against Saka twice now and he's dealt with him really, really well on both occasions. He's standing up to decent players, coming out on top defensively, and also giving us something going forward. So I'm of the view, I'm a bit old school, that he's in that shirt at the moment, and Tsimikas and Robbo will be fit very, very soon. I'd like to think that he'd get his chance to continue until such point that, you know, his performances start to dip, if they start to dip. So I'm a bit old school like that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. You play your players in form, and if people have earned that shirt, then that's who you play. I strongly believe that too. I don't think you pick people on merit. I think you have to pick people on form. You know, Robbo and Tsimikas both had quite severe injuries, let's be honest. And, you know, for Gomez to just lose his space all of a sudden would be extremely unfair. And I think that would, I don't think Klopp works that way. You know, I don't think he works that way. He might shift him into the middle if Konate needs a rest, or he picks up a bit of a niggle, as he sometimes does. Same as he might shift him out to the right. But at the same time, I do think that Joe Gomez should keep his place. I'm just going to pick up this stat that Jay put out. Another stat for Helior. Hello, Helior. Virgil van Dijk is the only centre-back to have 100% tackle success rate across Europe's top 5 leagues this season. Jay, if that is true, that is absolutely sensational. To have 100% tackle rate success, and we're halfway through the season, I would like someone to confirm that. I'm not doubting you, but I'm saying if that's a fact, that's fact of the season for me. And I love fact statistics as well, you know.
Wasn't the tackle that he got sent off for wasn't that a tackle against Newcastle?
I don't know. Does it get? I would assume it gets classed as a tackle.
Yeah,
Not sure. Again,
although he wasn't very good the other night.
No, he had a bit of a wobble, didn't he?
He kept. I think Jimenez is quite physical, and he kept mistiming his headers, which is very unlike him. But yeah, been ill. But yeah.
Yeah, very, very unlike Virgil this season, who's a colossus at the back. I still think he's the best centre-back in the world, regardless of a little blip against Fulham. Let's talk, Colin, a little bit about incomings, because Liverpool, according to Joseph Agbobley, who is a football correspondent for Football Talk and LFC Transfer Room, Liverpool made an attempt to sign Juventus forward Kenan Yildiz this month, but their offers were rebuffed by the Serie A club. Borussia Dortmund and RB Leipzig also faced rejection when they approached to sign the Turkish prodigy. Is there anything that you know about Yildiz? Have you seen him this season in Serie A? Have you seen him under, the Juventus banner and the Juventus badge?
I've seen a bit of Juventus this year. They've got 2 Americans playing for them, so they're on and advertised quite a bit. Hasn't made a massive impression to me. Could just be that I'm not watching. Not watching as closely as maybe I would be for a Liverpool game, or maybe he just didn't make an impression. Seems more like agent's positioning. Rather than something that I think is definitely true. I feel like when Liverpool are really in for someone, it's they do. I think they do a very bad job of hiding that, or keeping that quiet. Like if they're in for someone, or they're really making an approach, kind of outside of Fabinho, you generally are hearing about it, well before something has actually happened. So I would think probably not. But always happy to have talent. I'm never going to say no if the scouting department and Jurgen and the team think that recruit is right. If they think that's someone who can help improve the team, then get them in. That's fine. As we've said, not my money. Someone better spend it.
Well, according to Transfer Market, he's valued at around about 10 million euros. And that's obviously because he's only 18. He's just starting to break through. He's had 9 appearances in Serie A and he's scored 1 goal. I think Liverpool do sometimes conduct their business well. I think Liverpool would rather keep it under wraps. We also saw the same with Jota and Szoboszlai, who did come in a little bit under the radar. But then we also see McAllister, who is coming in, and we all knew about Nunes because Record Portugal broke that news beforehand. So it seems like Liverpool, if they want someone, they keep their sources close to their chest. But it just seems the other outlets from the other club, like Benfica, for example, it's quite difficult to do that, because I think Benfica wanted to start perhaps a bidding war, historically between Liverpool, Man United, and we got Darwin, and who did they get? Oh, yeah, Weghorst. So anyway, anything at all about the young Juventus prodigy Yildiz, Neil?
Not really. It was a surprise to me when I saw it this morning. I think he actually came out the Bayern Munich academy. I think he's got a decent pedigree and he is highly rated, but I don't see us doing anything. To be honest, we might be watching him, but I'm not sure we're going to spend big money on an 18-year-old at this stage. So probably we've been following him, but I can't see it.
No, he transferred to Juventus on a free transfer, actually, in the 2022-2023 season as well. But it may be one to keep an eye on in Europe, perhaps. Speaking about contracts, what do we think about the current situation of Mohamed Salah, who is out of contract very, very soon? Liverpool might have to cash in this summer if they don't want to risk him going on a free transfer the year afterwards. Do they extend, or do they perhaps cash in their chips this summer, or do they just, say, okay, you know what, after everything you've done, much like James Milner, see out your contract and you've got free choice, get a massive signing on fee? Is Salah that type of player, do you think? Is Salah that type of player who would actually want to stay at Liverpool? Or is he somebody who, let's face it, is probably going to be in the first team for the next 3 or 4 years? We know that his agent could sometimes be a bit sketchy. But Colin, do you think Mohamed Salah is destined to stay at Liverpool and see out his career? Or do you think Liverpool cashed in their chips early?
No, he's going to sign another contract. I think the kind of widespread report, especially out of Saudi Arabia, how would I put it? The intensely bad press coming from, I think, some players who have moved there, and we've seen some of them come and visit Liverpool on their break, and Jordan Henderson apparently wants out immediately and is willing to accept or looking at interest from literally wherever it can be given. I think Mohamed Salah is much more interested in being remembered for being great than he is for just making money. It's as well, it's not like he's being paid poorly. It's not like he's the highest earner at the club. He has that status. I think at this point, it's not like he's taken a nosedive in terms of form or physicality. He, obviously takes care of himself better than I would say physically than anybody else, certainly on the team and probably anybody else in the league. Outside of the cash, why go there? You're giving up the ability for sporting accolade for legacy, and I think he's much more interested in that than just the cash. And as well, that money's not, in theory, that money's not going anywhere. They're not just going to be able to spend the amount of money that they have, in 2 years or in 3 years. If in 3 or 4 years he, can start to show his age, they'll be able to pay him ridiculous sums of money then. He still is the most popular, certainly one of the most popular people in the Muslim world. Their commercial interests don't go away in 2 or 3 years. He'll sign a new contract. He'll make more money here than he already is. And we certainly are finishing top 4, and Champions League is on the horizon again. So he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think, Bobby Firmino also wants out. And I think his Saudi club as well, because he's earning such a big contract, are actually happy to let him go as well. So it looks like Bobby's out. It looks like Henderson's out. We know that Neymar's unhappy as well. It's not a glowing reference, for Saudi Arabia, and they've done so much to try to pump an industry and pump a new economic generation into their sports, and it's not really working out for them in terms of football. And we've seen it in terms of boxing because it's a one-off. We've seen it in wrestling because, again, it's a one-off. NFL will probably eventually go over there as a one-off, but actually to be over there consistently, I think footballers will find it quite hard. Go on, Colin.
I was gonna say, I hope not. I hope they don't ever play an NFL game there. I'll be furious. But
I mean, I could just see the money being pumped into NFL, and that's something that I could just see happening. Much like I always said, I'd be furious if boxing went, and alas, there we are. Neil, I mean, talking about Mohamed Salah, I would say him, Virgil, and Alisson are the big three really for Liverpool. I can't see a world where Mohamed Salah doesn't sign a contract for Liverpool. And I can't see a world in which he doesn't play for Liverpool for the next 3 or 4 years, because as Colin really, quite rightly said and really well put, Mohamed Salah can wait for the next 3 or 4 years. He can break so many records at Liverpool, so many records around Europe, so many records in the Premier League. There's no need for him to go to Saudi Arabia at the moment when, let's face it, the standard of football isn't really the pinnacle of the sport. He could go as his career might be on the decline. So does he stay at Liverpool? We know that he would probably want a bumper contract. He wanted that last time. He got it. I think Salah is one of those players, almost like the MVP system, where you say, okay, fine, we'll break our wage structure for you because he is that influential. And, there isn't anyone else on the right wing that I'd rather have in the world right now.
No, and I think we probably all feel a little bit more confident than we may have done during the last transfer window, because it did look a bit worrying, especially with the way that players were going out there. But the fact that there is some negative publicity, I think, is a good thing from our perspective, and wanting to keep hold of him. Playing in front of crowds of hundreds, the sort of crowds that we would get at our non-league games, or right down the pyramid at sort of step 6 level. So I don't see a world where he goes to Saudi now, as Colin alluded to. I think Klopp was quoted the other day as saying that Salah could play till he was 40 or something at a higher level. I don't know if it was 40, but it was certainly late 30s, which again suggests that time is on his side. He can spend another 3 or 4 years with us, break some more records, and then go and make his money. Interestingly, his agent commented on a tweet from one of the European journalists, I can't remember who it was, the other day, who'd said that he wanted to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona. And I think Rami just responded to say, actually, couldn't be further from the truth, or something along those lines. So I think there's no one I would rather see on the right wing for Liverpool over the next few years. I think he loves it so much that I'd be amazed if he left, and I don't see any other end result other than him signing an extension to his deal. Yeah, that was it, Dan.
Yeah, our very own Dan tuning in tonight and giving us the info that we needed. And Jay quite rightly says, his agent says he doesn't know what he's talking about. And Rami likes to gossip, on Twitter. So for him to shut it down, it absolutely must be true.
I think over recent times, I think he got accused, didn't he, of playing games during the contract negotiations.
The contract, that was it, yeah.
But since that point, he's actually come out, more than once and shut things down. So doesn't seem to be many games being played.
I mean, to be fair, if Mohamed Salah's, your client, you're doing pretty well. I don't think you need to play games anymore after that bumper contract that Salah signed. So maybe that's why he's showing his colours. Maybe he knows that Liverpool is the place for him. I generally can't see Salah ever, going to a Madrid or a Barcelona. I could see it with the likes of Luis Diaz, for instance, who's made it quite clear that he was a fan of Barcelona. I could see it with a lot of South American players wanting to go over there. I could even see Nunez, if the opportunity came, wanting to go to a Barca or Madrid. But Salah, to me, had never really seemed like a player to go. There's players who would always go there, like your Suarez's, etc. Salah was never one for me to jump ship and go to Madrid or go to Barcelona. I just don't know. I don't know why I felt that, but I never felt a threat from those two giants, if I'm completely honest. We're talking about contract extensions. What do we do with Joel Matip? Colin, he's obviously been one of the best free signings, certainly for Liverpool, but probably even in Premier League history. His season has abruptly come to an end. Do we do what we did with Oxlade-Chamberlain, give him another year so he can see out, his time at Anfield, and we give him a proper send-off? He could play as a reserve, I suppose, if he comes back. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to come back as a reserve. I'm just saying he could come back as a reserve to a Konate. Joel Matip could come in and dislodge Konate, because he is that great centre-back. He's such a great dribbler of the ball, and he is such a great defender. Do you think that Liverpool would perhaps do that? Because, again, his contract's up in the summer.
I would certainly hope so. I think at the point that it is more, it's more of like a personal responsibility to him, and in terms of his like future like sporting ability. Like, nobody is going to take the risk, even though he's a free agent, or I think very few people would take the risk immediately following the knee injury, given his age, given his injury history, to take him immediately when he's still recovering. That's not something that clubs who would say that they're good at business would do. I think the best thing for Liverpool to do is to offer him the 1 year deal. It gives him the ability to use the club's resources to rehab, to continue to be a member of the team, and a really beloved figure, I think, at the club. For the amount that he's given, give him that opportunity to fully rehab, to fully get back to full training. And then that gives him the opportunity to actually find a club, and actually find someone who, with a fully healthy, bill, he'd be able to find someone who would actually be willing to take him up. I think I'd feel really terrible if they were just like, okay, see ya, and like they just ran it to the end and he was gone. Like, that would feel wrong to me.
I suppose a lot of this comes on to what Matip would actually like as well, because, as Dan quite rightly put, the clubs will be knocking on the door for him if his injury and rehab brings him back to 70% of the player that he was.
Yep.
There is a worldwide shortage of quality centre backs, especially ones that are going on a Bosman. So actually, the conversation probably is, if Liverpool do offer him a contract, does he want to stay and maybe not be a starter, or does he go somewhere else and become that starter? I mean, Neil, the Joel Matip conundrum, the ideal world would be like he left in the sunset, like James Milner did at the end of last season, and finds himself a new club and everyone wishes him well. It's not quite worked out for him because obviously his career and his time at Liverpool will be cut short. I do think if Liverpool win a big trophy this season, i.e. FA Cup, Europa, I'm not going to say the League Cup. As much as I love the League Cup, I won't class it as a big trophy, or the Premier League. I think Matip could definitely walk away then into the sunset. But if we don't, would he want to stay for another year?
It's a difficult one, because he was actually starting when he picked up the injury. He was actually, I think he was starting ahead of Ibu. Now, we can argue whether Ibu should have been starting or whether it was because of injury, but Matip was actually performing at a very, very decent level. So I think a lot of it will depend on what his ambition is as a player. Does he still think after his injury that he's someone that can force himself into the starting 11? Is he happy to settle for a backup role if that's what it's going to be? And it might be sold to him as that. Or does he want a fresh challenge? He might have already made up his mind that he wants to move at the end of his contract to experience football in a different country. I don't know. So it's very much down to him, really, I think, as to what he wants. I think the club will do something to offer him an extension. I think it'll be for 1 year because he's probably not going to be fit. When did he pick up his injury? Was it November? so he's probably not going to be fit until at the earliest pre-season next year. It's a tricky one. And it's also tricky because if he is offered an extension and he decides to stay, we've got Virgil van Dijk, Ibu, Joel Matip, Jarell Quansah, Joe Gomez. And again, you can argue whether Gomez is backup fullback or whether he's a backup centre-half, but potentially that's 5 central defenders. And would that prevent us from bringing in another central defender that I think everybody seems to think that we need, even if it's just to freshen something up, maybe a left-sided centre-back. So it's a real tricky situation. I think we need to do right by him for what he's given to us. We brought him in on a free transfer. He's always been excellent when he's played. I don't think he's trouble when he's not playing, and he's been a big part of, I think, the dressing room, because I think he's really respected and really, really liked as a player. So, as much as I want to see the club do the right thing by him, I don't want it to impact what we're going to do in what we plan to do in the future without Joel Matip. So, yeah, difficult one to answer.
It is. I think the difficulty is if Liverpool have a centre-back perhaps lined up in the summer, then you could say, okay, fine, like Joel Matip can go, because you have Quansah, you've got Gomez, you've got Van Dijk, and obviously we need, and Ibu, and you need someone else, I think, if Matip goes. However, if there isn't a centre-back, or if there's, in the summer, somebody actually we think, maybe we need someone else to come in, but we could save money here, then maybe that's something that they do as well. By renewing his contract, maybe that's a way of saving money and not bringing in a centre-back if other positions are needed. It's certainly one to look for. And while we're talking about contracts, I certainly think we need to talk about Jurgen Klopp, whose current contract is due to expire in 2026. I absolutely have no doubt that Jurgen Klopp should sign a contract until, way beyond 2036, let alone, anything else. The only issue is that, that German manager position will be calling. I can't see Germany doing very well this summer. I think, the only position that Jurgen will go for is that German national team. When he's winding down, there's less, stress and there's less involvement in there from the week-to-week normal schedule. But for me, I don't think Jurgen's ready for that. I would love to see him sign an extension contract. I certainly can't see him going anywhere else. I mean, there's no one else, surely, Colin, better to lead this team forward than Jurgen Klopp, and we're all praying for a contract extension.
There's not anybody even remotely close, and there's a lot of good candidates. There's like a lot of people who, on their merit, I'd be like, yeah, I think they're an unbelievable manager. I think that they have, Xabi Alonso, I think would be an incredible, next person to take hold of our club. But I don't think anybody is close. I don't think he's remotely near to Jurgen. And if Jurgen is willing to, I think that's always been the question is he willing to continue on, or does he have the mentality to do it? Not necessarily, is he capable of doing it? It's does he really want that? If he wants that, slide the blank check across the table and a pen and sign him for whatever he asks for. There's nobody who I would rather have. No one who I think gets what this the club ethos is even remotely. There's no better representative, I think, for the club and for all of us. Honestly, I am always feel honored to be to be a fan of the club and to be represented by him. He's the best person you could ask for to do that, and I don't think anybody is going to be able to just step in and just be able to do that in the same way. You're right. There's no other club job that he would I think rather take. I could only imagine, going to the German national team, or the only alternate would be if he decides that he's not going to sign, he's just going to take time off. Like maybe eventually if Mainz was in a bad position, like he would go back there, somewhere that he loves.
Yeah, or a Dortmund, maybe,
absolutely.
After a sabbatical, like we saw, he took a sabbatical. Brendan obviously got his marching orders in October, and then the rest is history. I genuinely think that in the modern day, Bill Shankly, Bob Paisley aside, in the modern day, Jurgen Klopp is the only one who comes close to them in the modern day era as a manager for Liverpool Football Club. I would love to see him extend past 2026. When we're looking at World Cups, Canada, Mexico, United States, the North American World Cup is in 2026. So I'm sure he's in no rush. Even if he extended till 2028 and then left in 2028, he's got 2 years to build a good German national team in those 2 years. If that's where he wants to go. So for me, I would love to see him extend. I think he's the best thing that has happened in modern times to Liverpool Football Club. And there's no coincidence that we're talking about Liverpool as a group of legends here and a group of absolute wild beaters.
Yep.
And they're all playing under Jurgen Klopp. There's Mohamed Salah, there's Virgil, there's Ali, there's Jones, there's Mane, Diaz, Firmino. They're not the same players if Jurgen Klopp isn't there, and for me, even with the youngsters coming in, you've got Elliott coming in, you've got Bajcetic coming in, you've got Kwanzaa coming in, you've got Bradley coming in, you've got Nunes, who is eye-class still as a youngster. They're not the same players unless Jurgen Klopp's at that football club. There's a lot of shouts from Paul in here about Xabi Alonso coming in. I think he's certainly the most sought after property. He does feel a little bit of a flavour of the week. I remember that we were all gunning for Nagelsmann to replace Klopp at one point in time. We all wanted Tuchel to perhaps be Liverpool manager, and they all seem a little bit of flash in the pan. Does Alonso feel like the next Liverpool manager? And I do get what Jay is saying, doesn't want Chelsea, Spurs, Man United to get Alonso. I don't think Xabi is the type of player to go for the money. I don't think he is a cash and grab man. I think he would very meticulously and hopefully very meticulously plan his journey through the ranks. I do think, however, when one Don Carlo resigns, that Xabi might be Real Madrid bound. However, I wouldn't sacrifice Klopp to get in Xabi before Madrid.
I agree 100%. So if Klopp wants to extend, I don't think the Xabi Alonso situation comes into it. He's still got much to prove as a manager or a head coach. He's doing a brilliant job at the moment. And I think if they did win the league, it would be rather amusing that Harry Kane went to Bayern Munich and didn't win the title. So for me, we know that we've got at least another 2 seasons of Jurgen. We can see what Alonso does in those 2 years. I agree with you that his route, I think, is more likely to Spain than it is to another club in the Premier League. But I think if Klopp said he wants to extend till 2028, great, get it done, and we'll worry about a successor a bit further down the line. Not when he's going. We do need to get some succession planning in place, but I think we would be dealing with it 2 years later. We're looking to do it.
Yeah, and I think that contract extension actually does allow time for managers to come through and be proven. Alonso really only the past 3 or 4 years has come through. So, again, big steps forward for Xabi. And whilst Spain might be calling, I'm sure we've never turned down the chance to come to Liverpool. Alonso, he's an absolute Liverpool legend. Helium does make an amazing point. Klopp earns around £50 million a year with his sponsorships with the Peloton and his beer ads and his Adidas as well. So he does actually earn around 50 million. I do see the problem. You are correct. But when a man is earning £50 million a year, I don't think taking a pay cut to around about 4.8 will bother him too much if he's made his money. And Jay says, Mrs. Klopp will tell him when it's time. And that is absolutely spot on. She did say, or he did say rather, that Oh, I can't remember her name. It begins with a U. Can you
Ulla.
remember, lads?
Ulla.
Ulla was a big decision in Jurgen's
I,
decision.
I actually feel that he gets the club so well, and it's so ingrained in him now that I think he's almost. It reminds me a bit of Wenger at Arsenal, to be honest, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he sees this as his job, and he's going to continue to do it for as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, me too. I just can't see him anywhere else. I generally can't, unless it's that German national coach. I can't see him anywhere else, and I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want to see anywhere else, and I'm certainly not banging on the door to get him out. I never have done, and I'm certainly not banging on the door saying we should get so and so in too. As we wind down here, then let's, I suppose, talk about next week. Do you think that it's a potential banana skin for Liverpool, Colin, to be going to a team which actually have done okay this season? We are going away to Bournemouth at the Vitality, and they are a team that are quite difficult to break down. They have the danger man Dom Solanke, who is Bournemouth's first ever player to win the Premier League Player of the Month. And that fell to Dominic Solanke. What an honour that was. He did have an absolutely brilliant December. Do you think that's a difficult place to go? I certainly don't think it's 3 points nailed on. I think they might frustrate us. And we've had some absolute barnstormers against Bournemouth before. I certainly don't think we'll be the 9-0 that we were a couple of seasons ago.
I think they're a difficult team. And I think that manager's done a really, really good job with what he has. Definitely took them a little bit in the beginning to kind of get going. I think get his tactics. I don't know if you guys follow any of the like the Tifo football guys on Twitter. The one is like obsessed with the coach and like spends a lot of time like watching Bournemouth and talking about them. And I think like they're a really, really well organized team. I think they're going to continue to do well, and it's not as easy as just going away to the smallest stadium or the next, I guess maybe the next smallest stadium in the Premier League now, and like just picking up 3 points and going back home. They will make you earn it. They will make you work for it, and if you're not careful, they're gonna creep up on you and get a couple goals. I mean, they made Manchester United look like idiots at home. They got outplayed like straight off the pitch. So I would not take them likely, and I don't think Jurgen will either.
I don't think that's the bar Manchester United. As good as it was, they're not the bar. I know what you're saying though.
They've won probably 9 more points than they deserve. They should be 5 to 7 places lower than they are, or 3 to 5 places lower than they are. Like, they're not good, and they have eked out points in games that they had no business getting any points from, and have eked out wins. So that's true, but I just mean, if we're looking at the table as a whole, if you were assuming that everybody is just as good as their placement is, Bournemouth wouldn't be in the same league. You would think Bournemouth might not be in the same league as United, but they're a quality team. They're well coached. They're well organized. I think it's worth really considering them before just turning up.
Colin, thoughts on Bournemouth? Do you think that they have the potential to frustrate Liverpool, and does Dom Solanke have it in his locker to come up against his former team and deliver a killer blow?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely. I assume they'd get it. I don't think there's any hesitation on or would be any hesitation on Dom's end to, because it's his old team. Like he's turned into a real goal scoring threat if he's given the time and space and not carefully considered as someone to be careful of. Like, he will score, and they're going to punish you. So yeah, I'm more wary of them than I would be, I think, a lot of other teams at the moment.
Yeah, me too. Away from home as well, Neil, at the Vitality, it is rocking nowadays as well. Um, Bournemouth are a difficult team. I think they'll stay up. I genuinely think they'll stay up with ease, actually, this season. And the manager's done a great job there. Is there anyone apart from Solanke who you feel could be a threat that Liverpool might need to look after?
So I think one of the players that I've been quite impressed with is Semenyo, but I think he might be away at the Africa Cup of Nations. So he's one. But as I say, I think he's away. They've got other attacking players, Cliver, Sinistera, I think, that can do dangerous things. The one player, I watched them against Spurs, at Spurs. I watched the game live, and they were better than Spurs at that day. They lost 3-1 because they had a couple of defensive lapses. But the guy that came from Bristol City, Alex Scott, came on, very, very impressive. Runs with the ball, a bit similar to Grealish, the way he runs with the ball, can pick a pass and can score. And he scored the first goal, and then he had a header ruled out for offside. So they've got players that can have an impact going forward, and I think they're quite well organised and resolute at the back. Although Senesi, who I think is key, I think it's Marco Senesi. I think he may be injured, which may be a bit of a boost for us. But they've got some good players.
Suspended.
Oh, he's suspended.
I have him in FPL.
Yeah,
okay.
Me too. I was going to say he's red flagged in FPL. So that is a good sign because obviously Senesi is a really good player. And Bournemouth certainly do have players to hurt us. I do. Well, listen, after the City game today, Liverpool have got to go out and win and keep churning that pressure and keep putting that pressure on them because City did look down and out. Even though they kept attacking until the introduction of KDB, they didn't actually look like doing anything. But that's what they've got in their locker, a Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. I think we need players back though, because I think we are bare bones at the moment. All right, up front's probably not too much of an issue. Yes, we're missing Salah, but the other four are all doing a job. But in midfield, we've really got 4 midfielders that are fit. If Szoboszlai is not going to be fit, so I'm hoping he will be back for that game. The suggestion is that he's running, and again, we're fairly bare bones at the back as well. So Trent, they talked about the Chelsea game, but then there seemed to be something coming out saying that we'd kind of made more of it. So I'm hopeful that one of the left backs and maybe a surprise Trent appearance as well, but that's looking on the optimistic side.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think maybe I'm dining out on past performances, but I think Thiago has the ability to actually, change, even if he's just fit for the last 10 games of the season and we're still in that title race. He is a player who has the ability to turn us into title winners. And for me, Thiago is technically, apart from Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. And if we can get him fit for 10 to 15 games this season, I generally think that will be the difference. So I'm looking forward to seeing him return, as well as a fully fit Szoboszlai, as well as a McAllister maybe playing in his role. If Endo is carrying on the way that which he started the season as well. So let's see. We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. We are certainly in a title race, and I think it's going to be an exciting season. Any last thoughts or questions for anybody? Please do get them in now. Neil, Colin, last thoughts?
I was just looking at Bournemouth's fixtures. Is it possible that their last game was like the 31st of December and they don't play again until January the 21st?
No, they would have had an FA Cup game, I guess.
That's just like that's all. I just was like, wow, that's a really.
They played Tottenham, didn't they, on the 31st of December?
They did, and they got beat.
That was the game that I was referring to. So they must have had an FA Cup third round game the week after. So there'll be 2 weeks without a game.
Yep.
Whereas I guess it will be 10 days because we had the Fulham game.
I think, Jay said it earlier as well. Liverpool don't really do. It does take them a while to get churning after a break. Flipping heck, it takes them 45 minutes and a normal game to get going. So we don't normally turn up to the second half anyway. So, a break sometimes is great for the likes of Szoboszlai and Konate, etc., who need a little bit of a rest in between hands. But yeah, I think certainly there's a great chance there to extend. We go back to 5 points, don't we? I think at the top with City with a game in hand. So again, it just churns out that pressure, especially when City have to come to Anfield. I'm so glad it's that way around this season. They come to us, in the second game.
We've got a lot of our top away games. We got a lot of our top away games out very early in the season.
We did. Yeah.
Yes, we have got Arsenal away, but and Villa. But other than that, I think a lot of the tough ones have gone. I'm not including Man United.
No, because I generally think United at Old Trafford will come out and play and not put 11 men behind the ball like they did at Anfield. And you can't blame them for doing that.
It was
That was a horrible. Yeah, it was a horrible watch. It was awful.
Yeah, you can't blame them for doing it. Ten Hag wanted, he wanted a point, and that's what he got. You can't blame him, but you don't expect them to play that way in Old Trafford, and you would expect them to be leaving at half time again, hopefully, and hopefully we'll put them to the sword. Right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We have gone for 55, nearly 56 minutes tonight on the Saturday Night Club at LFC Transfer Room. As always, please do give us a like and a subscribe. It does go a very, very, very long way. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you to Colin, and thank you for Neil for your positivity and insights as well. Okay. We'll join you next week where, hopefully we'll be chatting more things positive, more things Liverpool. But for now, and until then, stay safe, take care, and up the Reds.